inspiration of Chinese words, Chinese poems, and calligraphy. And so I thought I'll try to do the other part, trying to go into Chinese words and to discuss what they really mean. But in particular, because of the movie Da Vinci Code, telling us so much about the hidden meanings and hidden messages. So it kind of inspired me to say, well, maybe I should look into Chinese and see what's hidden in there. And I guess just go over a little bit about Da Vinci Code. I guess before I do that, we do have a gathering after the talk at the Chan's Gourmet restaurant. You are all invited, all welcome to join us. I guess Agnes can pay for it because she sold so many paintings recently. Well, of course, she pays for it. It's out of my pocket. Okay. Anyway, so that aside, what was it going to say? Oh, the other thing I was going to say that in preparing for this lecture, I went deeply into the Da Vinci Code story. I found that the Da Vinci Code story is not that really interesting, but the story behind the Da Vinci Code, how the Da Vinci Code idea came about, and what actually happened in south of France that led to the Da Vinci Code was even more interesting. So I spent a lot of effort trying to prepare for that part of it, and I get carried away and it became very lengthy. So I cut it out. But if you insist after my primary talk and you're not tired enough yet, you are welcome to stay and I can go over those, okay? Yeah, I promise it's good. Yeah, but speaking of Da Vinci Code itself, of course, we know Dan Brown wrote this novel, and in his main story, he has actually first character is the Jacques Saunier, first character in there. He didn't really play in there because in the beginning of the story he got murdered. Okay. But he wrote something on the ground, on the floor, and that seemed to be a coded word. So that brought out all the rest of the story. And because he wrote in coded word, so I think he actually gave the indication that you should look up Robert Landon, the symbologist or the coded word specialist, to decode what he has written. And also in part of the story is that Sophie Neveu is the lady character in here. She is actually the cryptologist in the Paris police department. And so the two of them combined should be able to solve any mystery there is, and they sort of did. But what they eventually found out is that the Holy Grail is really not a grail. What is really hidden meaning in there is that in the Da Vinci painting of the Last Supper, the person right next to the right of Jesus is not really St. John, but rather it's Mary Magdalene. And the story says that Mary Magdalene was carrying the child of Jesus, and later on she actually fled and gave birth to a girl, and then she fled to France, landed in south of France, and eventually married to the French monarch, the Marigovian, Vigan monarch. And so that became the bloodline of Jesus. And but this story was not sort of allowed by Rome, by the Catholic authority. So they tried to suppress that, and that brought into all the murdering and everything. But my story, digging into it, is somewhat different. So if you want to hear it, you may. But anyhow, so this is the basic premise or story of Da Vinci Code. What it inspired me is that I like to look into Chinese language, Chinese characters, to see if there's anything that we can find special about the Chinese language. So that's my motivation, and I dug into it for several years and came up with some of the ideas that may be intriguing and interesting. We know that Chinese language started probably more than 4,000 years ago. It is one of the 4 ancient languages in the world, and it is perhaps not the only symbolic language, but the only survived symbolic language. The Egyptians, you're familiar with, the carvings in the pyramid and so on. Those are partially pictures encoding meaning, but the other parts are actually phonetic. So most of the Western languages are phonetic. Only the Chinese language, from the very beginning, is a symbolic language. What do we mean by symbolic? Well, first of all, it's pictographs, okay, pictograms. And we see something and we make a picture of it. And we record that picture in whatever documents we want to put down. And that became our language. So the first row on this picture are the symbols of sun, moon, mountain, and water, okay? As you can see, they pictorially describe sun, moon, mountain, and water very closely, okay? But then in about 200 BC, the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, came to power, and he was very ambitious, but he was also very ruthless. But he did it for a good cause, and he was saying that we want everything to be standardized. So what did he standardize? He then standardized the length measure. He standardized the volume. He also standardized the weight, okay? So everybody will be using the same. He also standardized the track of vehicles, so that, in all this, when you have the vehicles running through mud, they'll carve out tracks, right? And if you don't have the same width, then you will get in trouble running vehicles after vehicles. And like we know that we have run into the potholes all the time. But the most important thing he did was that he standardized the Chinese language, the Chinese characters, the writing of Chinese characters. The second row of the character is what we call the seal script. but actually in Chinese it's called 篆字, the 篆style of writing. So Emperor Qin Shi Huang asked his prime minister to set up a law to say, you shall use these characters. If you don't, what are the consequences? Well, many of the scholars who refuse to use get beheaded. And many of the books that are not in the standard script get burned. And in those days, the books were not on paper. The books are on bamboo sticks, but they roll up into what we call a ce, okay, a page, and you write on the bamboo. And so he burned all the bamboo and killed all the non-conforming scholars. But lo and behold, Chinese language got unified, and all over the country, you may speak a different dialect, but if you write the same. And so through the 2,000 some years until now, we are still using the same style of writing. The bottom row is today's modern standard writing. But do you know how modern is this modern? This starts about 2nd century, 200 AD is what the last row of style started. So we haven't changed much from that time until this time.
They all meaning the same thing, the first row, second row.
Yes, they are all the same symbols, but different style. But most people think that the Chinese words are all consist of pictograms or pictures. Okay, that's quite true. As you can see from this page, except for a couple of exceptions, these are all pictures of various things. The first row we have people on the left, and woman, the third one, and eyes on the middle, and the last one on the right. Can you guess what that is? That's teeth. You know, the guy doesn't really have all the tooth left. And on the bottom row, it's all the animals. We have the ox on the left, the goat, and then dog, and then pig, and horse, and deer. But the last two symbols are not animals. They are bow and arrow. They are used to hunt them, okay? So, as you can see, that those are the very early lives of people. Now, what we say these days is that the Chinese words are actually what we call the symbolic language. Okay, that's what Robert Landon is skilled on or expert on. But symbolic language is really very powerful because these days we use it all the time, but we Americans are not very aware of it. We use them, but we don't think about it. For example, on the left we have the traffic signs, and once you see the stop sign, you say, "Oh, I need to stop." So it's a reflection from your mind. You don't have to think about it. And on the right, of course, is the modern emojis. And once you see one, then you know how. Or your friend on the other side end of the computer of the internet or on his or her phone can tell exactly what you're telling him or her. Yeah. So these all got into our lives, and we are not thinking about it. it's like just like Chinese. We know the Chinese words, and they're in our life, and we sometimes don't need to think about it and know what it means. But these are not the only symbolic language. The mathematical science, we use it very often, but of course most of us don't use it, but our children go into school, they have to do that every day. And also the music scores, the symbols for music, it's very complicated to me, and for Chinese we don't like it. We call it what's douya? Bean sprout. Yes, we call them bean sprouts. But the musicians, they are so used to it, they can just look at the score and without thinking, they can play the music. It's a high reflection. So, in order for the symbolic language to be really useful, you cannot just be limited to pictures. You need to have a way to grow and to evolve. And the Chinese do have a way to grow it. And actually the Chinese have 6 ways to grow them. And one of the way to grow them is what we call indicative or ideograms. These are the symbols that when you see it, you know its meaning, but it's not really a picture. It's not really a picture of an object per se. So the first word on the left is up. That's a line and something above it. The second word is below, and it's a line, something below it. Okay, and the third word is big, and that's how it's created. Okay, it's holding my hands up. But the last word is small. No, it's not that. The real meaning of it is that is you have a one and then you cut it. Okay, that middle part is a knife. So you cut something and then it breaks into 2 parts. It becomes small. Okay, so these are the indicative words, and we can look at them and we grasp what it means. Oops, I should have used that. Oh, now let me give you some, create a picture or a scenery for you of how Chinese create their words. Okay, I made up this story, but it's kind of cute. Imagine that in ancient times, the sun it's just setting, the moon is coming up, and we, the smart people, we already know how to make fire. So let's make a fire. And when the fire is burning, the dogs get excited, so they bark out. But the Chinese probably only had puppies, so they say, run, 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 okay, instead of whoa, 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 okay. And the kids, seeing that the dogs are so excited, so they are excited too. So they say, run, run, run. And the smart man look at that, and he thinks about it. He said, oh, that can mean something. What does it mean? I'll create a word that means burning, ran. Okay, so this word is pronounced as ran. But what it's made of? It's made of, on the left side is the moon, okay, a reclining moon. And on the right-hand side is the dog. And on the bottom, that's the symbol for fire. So in the evening, when the moon comes up, we burn the fire and the dog starts barking, and that means the fire is burning. Okay, and that's how it's created. Now, this is how I interpret the word. when I was doing the research, I went to Taiwan and bought a couple of books. And when I search and find the word ran, and I look at it and they say, this word means cooking the dog meat. I say, oh no, I cannot bring that back to Seattle. They'll kill me instead of burning the dog. Okay, we're such animal-loving country here, so forget about that. Erase. Okay. I think my interpretation is better, and I have proof of it, because this word "ran." It's used very extensively in Chinese language, but the modern ran is the one on the left, the bottom one on the left. Not only have the fire on the bottom, they also put a fire on the side, and it's a double firing, and that's the modern word that's meaning ran or burning. But the original ran has evolved, and we use it in very extensive ways. We make into phrases. The first one is 然而, which means on the other hand, however. Okay. The second one is 然后. 后 means back, and the phrase means afterwards. And then the third one means is 当然, and that's of course. And the last one is 自然, which means naturally, okay, nature or naturally. So as you can see, none of this word is used in any contact with dog meat, okay? The only word I can find, or we use in the modern days, is called 自然, and that's associated with lamb meat or beef, okay? And that's actually the spice. Some people use to cook the meat. So that example showed us that we use compositions, we use structures to combine different symbols together to create a new word, to create new meaning. And the perfect example is the word 心 or heart. Heart, of course, we know it's the blood organ that we have to rely on it to live. But the Chinese actually associate 心 with our mind, our thoughts, or our feeling. Okay, and I don't know about you, but one time I was really sad. My heart really hurted, okay? And I think Chinese believe in that. So they used the 心 word to connotate thoughts, ideas. So the first three words are actually one way or another, one or the other connotes the ideas, thoughts. The first one is 音, yi, okay? Yi has a yin on top of heart. Yin is sound. So the sound in your heart is what you think, okay? It's what you thought. And the second one is jing in the heart. The jing means now or today, okay? And what is on your mind now is your thought, your idea. And the third one is interesting. It says the field on your heart or in your heart. So you can perhaps think about a flower field, and what you think about or what your feeling is maybe very happy. So that also connotes thought. But actually, with a closer, deeper research, I found out that the top part is not really field. The top part originally in the ancient script is a symbol of head. Okay, it has another stroke on top of it, and that's the head. And so the Chinese were not that dumb in the old days. They really know that your idea is associated with your head and your heart. But the word kind of evolved over the ages and became this way. But it still makes sense. Okay. And the next word is what my wife likes most. That is the word of love. Okay. And what is love? The Chinese put reception, acceptance, and the heart together. You accept somebody's heart, then you are in love. Okay. Or you give your heart to somebody and he or she accepts, then you have love. So that's a very interesting word. And the last one is perhaps the most common used to introduce Chinese words. That's the word 忍. 忍 means suffer or perseverance. Okay. And what are the symbols? The symbol on top of the heart is a knife. So if you put a knife on your heart, you have to suffer and persevere. So that's how it means. So we want to think about what kind of mysteries or mystical ideas that we have, then we probably have to go back into thinking that what are our what we wonder in life, what's the mysteries in life. I think there are several mysteries. One of them is the universe. It's so big, we don't know. Even today, I think scientists still cannot tell if there's a boundary or not. Okay, I think for all we know, there probably is no boundary. There are far away places that even the stars you cannot see them, and that's just because they're too far. But the other part of the mystery is then we wonder about life themselves. What is life? How come we are aware of our lives? What is our awareness of life? And that's perhaps what we call consciousness. But what is consciousness? And even today, I think a lot of scientists are looking into it, and they still cannot give you a firm answer. A lot of philosophers look into it, and they are still searching for the answer in that also. So we have these mysteries very often that because we don't have the answer, we get into religion and we create something that can explain things to us. But before we go into religion, this is another example telling us that our feeling about life and universe and everything. The top one is a poem written in the 7th century Tang Dynasty, and of this poet visiting an ancient place, and then he looked at the place. He says, "Oh, I cannot see anyone before me that in the past, and I cannot see anyone following me in the future. And I only see this heaven and earth that's persisting forever and ever. And thinking about that, I'm so lonely around here, and tears fall from my eyes." Okay, so this is a Chinese scholar's feeling about life and expressed in a poem. But in the Western philosophy, of course, I think the best known is what Descartes said, that I think, therefore I am. I think because now in my mind I have a consciousness, then I know I am here. And actually this awareness of one's existence to this day is still very mysterious. But my question is that, what do Chinese think about existence? What is the word that signifies existence in the Chinese literature, in the Chinese language? And what I found is that this word 子 is the one that signifies existence. So the examples on the top row is 房子、桌子、椅子、车子. Right now we are in the 房子, in a building, in a house. And the second one is 桌子. This is a 桌子, okay? And then what you're sitting on is the 椅子. And then when you came here, you drove your car, which is 车子. Now, the 房 and 桌 and 椅 and 车, these are all words representing something, okay? So it's all the houses, all the buildings, all the tables. But why do we add a 子 to it? Well, what the Chinese way of doing things is that we have what we call the category word, okay? A word that symbolizes a class, a category. But they are general nouns, okay? And they don't signify one specific thing. So whenever we talk about one specific thing, this car, okay, and you say 这一部车子, okay, instead of 这一部车, you add a 子 to it, you add a 子 to the end, and that 子 doesn't have any meaning to it except that it signifies it's a specific instance, a specific existence of something. Okay? And the second row we have on the left it says 夫子. 夫子 is a respectful addressing of a man. Okay, we call him a 夫子. And the second word is 小子. We remember 小 means little, right? And 小子means is sort of a kind of a little bit despised attitude toward the little ones. So the little one is the 小子, okay, children. Okay. And then we have Confucius and Lao Tzu. At the end, Confucius, of course, we know is the greatest teacher in Chinese history, and we use the 子 to signify that we have great respect for him. Okay, so it's Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu, of course, is the founder of Taoism. So the 子 word is used very extensively in Chinese, but we hardly know why it's there. You know, what does it mean? So to look into the meaning of the 子 word itself, we Chinese are kind of in luck because we do have an ancient dictionary. This dictionary was created in 200 AD during the Han Dynasty. It's called 说文解字. Okay, it lists tens of thousands of ancient Chinese words in both the ancient script style and also the later, the formal style. And so it's a very good reference for us to go back into to see what words really mean, how it started. But the word 子 is kind of intriguing. It's kind of frustrating because what it says is that 11月阳气动，万物之入以为谶. It says the 11th month, the yang energy starts to move, and it feeds into every living thing, and the things rise. Okay, so it's a very dubious explanation for the word 子, and the last word 谶 means rise. Okay, so we don't really know what does it mean? Okay. Well, we do know a little bit, and which I'll explain later.
I have a question.
Yes.
Your 11th month is on a solar calendar or a lunar calendar?
Lunar calendar. Yes. Good question. Yeah. The lunar we use the lunar calendar, but actually from very ancient times, the Chinese do know how to match lunar calendar with the solar calendar, and we know when the sun is the hottest, and when it's longest day and shortest day, and so on. But so the lunar calendar sort of start in late the lunar calendar of the year starts sort of in February time frame. Okay, so in the January time frame, it's the 11th month, and Chinese know that mostly in the 11th month is spring begin to start to come. So that's why we have that explanation there. Okay, we'll have a little bit more explanation of that later on. But to look at the zi itself, the composition of zi, it's made up of yi1 and liao, and this wiggly thing. Now, if you look into the liao, the explanation says liao diao ye cong zi wu bei xiang xing. It says that this is a pictorial pictogram. Okay, it's really diao. It follows. It's within the category of zi, but without arms. Okay, so a man without arms is baby, right? But it says 象形, so it's a pictogram. And it's still puzzling, we don't know what it's talking about. But the word diao, when you look at that up, it says that 行进相交也, 流行脚相交为雕. It says, when you walk, your legs cross. Okay, when cows walk, their legs will cross, and you call that diao. But it still doesn't answer the question. Okay, so you wonder what really happened. What are you talking about? Okay, and I came to realize that the Shouwen Jiezi was created in 2nd century, but by 9th century, the Song dynasty came about. They have a revision of the dictionary. Okay, and in the Song dynasty, they very much treasure the scholars or the people who write and thinks. But in particular in Song dynasty, the moralists have taken root, and everything is evaluated with a moralist attitude, and so they don't want to say anything that's taboo. And so actually what's happening here is that liao diao ye, when we were kids, we boys argues with each other and we'll say diao, which means actually the male organ, okay? And we sort of talking in a sense of contempt, and that's how we use it. But in Song dynasty, they didn't want to explicitly say that that's what it is, and use some of these twisted explanations. And so that's how they ended up with all the explanations they have. But with my explanation to say that liao is really the male organ, then what this word means is really a man standing between heaven and earth. And that's a big deal, okay? It's a real man that can stand between the heaven and earth. But we talk about Zi as the beginning of the months, or the beginning of the year, and how is that done? And from very ancient times, we have a system of set of two sets of characters that we use them combined together to signify what time we have or what year we have. The top line is called Tian Gan, and the second line is Di Zhi. The top left row has 10 symbols. The second row has 12 symbols. And we use these in combination, and you line them up, but when you go over go past one cycle of Tian Gan, then you have to start with something from the later on in the Di Zhi. So when you cycle it through, you make up 60 years as one full cycle. So from very ancient times, we have used this. So even today, when we go back to look at the very ancient text documents, and they will use this Gan Zi symbols to tell us what year it was. And because we do have history, so you can match the history and the year symbol, and you know exactly when it was. And not only that, because we have a lot of astronomical records, so you can match when they observed eclipses, sun or moon eclipses, and in the history, and then you can check the real cycles of cosmos cycles to determine what year it was. And one such example, interestingly, is that in 1976, the archaeologists dug up a grave. This grave belongs to Fu Hao, and as you can see that it's a woman, okay, because the middle picture is her jewelry, okay. I think it's made of jade, and it's a hairpiece, and it's a picture of a phoenix. And the right one is it's a vessel. It's called Aozun, which is a bird, but it's a bronze vessel that's particularly for her to perform ceremonies, okay, made for her to perform ceremonies. Now, the symbol on the left is probably what's coming from the bronze, but you can see it's two women on the sides and one symbol on the top, which means bloom, and one symbol on the bottom, which is zi, or the child. Okay, and these two words means woman and good. Okay, very good. And turns out that Fu Hao was a very, very capable, remarkable woman. Okay, she was the empress of the Emperor Wu Ding, and she died in 1200. So that was a very long time ago. She was not only the queen, but she also was a commander of armies. She sometimes accompanies the emperor to go out fighting wars, and even there were occasions that she fought a war all by herself, taking 13,000 troops to wage the warfare, and he was very, very successful. So it was a remarkable find that we can say that Chinese, we do have women liberation from 22,000 years, 2,200 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Okay, but what I was trying to say is that all these finds, and there are a lot of oracles that relates to Fu Hao. And on all the oracles, oracles are the fortune-telling vehicle, okay? We use some animal bone or the turtle shell, we drill the hole on it and burn it and see how the cracks goes. And then we say that, okay, whether this is a good sign or bad sign, and that's how the ancient Chinese religion goes. We don't know something, then we ask heaven, okay, and let heaven tell us what's going on. And we have one particular oracle that says Fu Hao is pregnant on such and such a day, and so we make a prayer and ask whether it's fortune or not, lucky or not. And the answer is that the sign says it's going to be a girl, so it's not lucky. Okay, my women liberation story has to be thrown away. Okay, but all these events can be correlated with history, and we know what happened in those days. Now, from existence, we come to the question of religion. Okay, we talked about the Chinese ancient times. They use fortune telling. They ask the heaven what's happening to us. So, question arises in my mind: what is the symbol that symbolizes religion for the Chinese? And I found out that it's the symbol Shi on the left-hand side. And we see a lot of religious words. The first one is over here is Shen, which means God, which has the Shi on its side as a part of the radical, as the primary radical there. The second word is goat, and the Shi radical, that means good, yeah, lucky. Okay, you're lucky. It's very good. And the third one means welfare. You have wealth. And the fourth one means prayer, praying. And the last one is ceremony. So all these words are associated with religion. But Chinese didn't really have a religion. Okay. The question is that we don't have a God. We don't have a so dominating religion from the ancient times. But what happened to Chinese is that they have a general belief, and they set up in the government. They set up an organization that does the praying, and then does the fortune telling. And our God is just the heaven. Okay, and earth also is, as we believe to be a supreme being that's protecting us. So what's this word Shi? Okay, why does it signify religion? And if you look into 说文解字, into the explanation, it says 天垂象见吉凶，所以世人也。从二 or 从上. Okay, it says heaven reveals signs to us to tell us whether it's lucky or not, okay, fortunate or not, so as to reveal to people, to tell people. So that's the meaning of Shi. And if 从二 从的二 is the ancient way of writing 上 or up, okay, so it follows up, okay, so the revelations come from above. So that's how the word was composed, okay. And says 天垂象, that heaven give us indications. What are the indications? The further explanation to say the three revelations to us are from sun, the moon, and the stars. Okay, so if you look at the heaven, how the heaven operates, then they'll tell us the story of how things are going, and this is the revelation from heaven, from the sky. So it's a very reasonable, very sensible explanation of this word 是, but it doesn't say God. Okay, there's no God here. Maybe come to this, I can claim that I have finished my talk, but you'll be throwing the things over me to say, okay, is that it? It's not quite the story yet. Stepping aside from my investigations, recently I saw some videos about the Chinese Christian preaching, and they also use the Chinese words as a base of their preaching. What they said was that, hey, the Chinese were Christians to begin with. They know all about the Old Testament. You see the word Jing, the first word on the left, is two woods and the word Si, which means that the word means forbidden. Okay, you have giving rules, guidelines, things you shouldn't do, and that word is two wood on the top and the Si on the bottom, and that says that when God created Adam and Eve, He put them into the Garden of Eden and give them rules. They should not eat the fruit, okay, from the trees. Otherwise, bad things will happen. So the Chinese preacher says, you see, that's exactly what the Old Testament says. And then, but Eva didn't listen to it, so she ate the apple, and then she became aware of shame. So she has to put clothing on. So the second word means naked, and because she ate the fruit, she has to put on the clothes. But if you take out the clothes, then means naked. And so, you see, that's Old Testament again. And the last word says that when God told Noah that there's going to be a flood, Noah built an ark for his own family. And his own family, he has 3 sons and 3 daughters-in-laws. So counting him and his wife, there's altogether 8 people. So the ark is built for 8 people. And this word on the left-hand side is the symbol for little boat, but on the right-hand side is 8 mouths. So it's 8 people. So as you see, Chinese are Christians after all, according to them. Okay. By the way, I am what you may say a non-believer, although my wife started out as a Catholic, but I'm not trying to put any judgment on any religion. We're just having a very academic discussion of the language. Okay? But the word 是 is a very simple word, but it's made up of 2 parts. The first part is 2, 1 and 2 is made up of 1 and 1, that's 2, that's on the top. And the 3 strokes underneath means 3, okay? So it's a symbol of 1, 2, and 3. But we have a lot of connotations about 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3 in the religions, okay? A lot of ideas, concepts. The only religion in China, the Taoism, which is actually the philosophy of Lao Tzu, but later on it evolved into religion. It says, Lao Tzu says, 道为一，一生二，二生三，三生万物. the Taoism is Tao, okay, the way things should be, okay. He says Tao is one, and one grows into two, and two grows into three, and then from three you grow everything, okay. Well, it's a very deep philosophy, so you need to go back and think about it. But the two is really binary or dualism. And we talk about exist or not exist. That's dualism. And yin and yang, which is the Tao philosophy about. And or we can talk about material or spirit. These are dualism. But of course, in computers, we always talk about binary. The way computer works is that you make a lot of memory units, and you turn it, the memory unit, the magnetism, you turn it on or off, then that memory is kept in the computer, and then it works. You make a lot of them, then it works. But in the Chinese philosophy, there are a lot more growth out of the 1, 2, and 3. This one is this is one is not Taoism. This is actually the Yi, or the Chinese way of fortune telling. They, from the very beginning, they use the stick symbols. It's a broken stick or a full stick, and these means 0 and 1, okay? And then you use the stick symbols, combine 3 of them together, whether they are broken or not broken, then they can mean different things, okay? So you can have the combinations of all these 8 symbols. Now with the 8 symbols, you still cannot tell very much. You combine 2 of these 3 sticks, trigrams, and then that'll tell you a lot of things. So the combination of all the different symbols made up of these sticks will give you 64 different combinations. And the ancient Chinese believe that the 64 combinations is sufficient to tell how things going, how your life is going, how everything in the world works, okay? And you may be familiar looking at this symbol to be familiar. This is, of course, what's on the Republic of Korea, the South Korean flag. They use the symbol. And the Koreans, just the last few days, they have decided that they are going to go back to Chinese characters again. They have banned them for 50 years, and now they are going back, because it seems that their language doesn't work very well without the Chinese. But they do claim that the Chinese characters or Chinese words were created by them. So they claim to the UN to say, okay, we have a heritage claim, and all the Chinese words are Korean, and all this 8 trigrams.
They're business cars in Chinese.
yeah. And they even say Confucius was Korean, okay, which may be true. We don't know. Okay, but anyway, we believe it's Chinese. Okay. Now we talk a lot about 1 and 2. There's more mysteries about 3, which is Trinity. I think almost in every religion there's a Trinity. Okay. Here we talk about the Chinese ancient thought, and the Chinese ancient thought is heaven, earth, and man. That's the Trinity in Chinese concept. Okay. And of course that's signified by the words that we have talked about. Okay. But other Chinese thoughts about Trinity is, one of them is Taoism. Okay, the Taoism talks about that our life is really made of three parts: Jin, Qi, and Shen. That means the material essence, the Qi is the energy within us, and then the Shen is our consciousness. And the Taoism thinks that this is the essence of life. In Buddhism, they have a different thinking. They say they have three treasures in Buddhism, which are Buddha and the Buddhist way, the Buddhist rules, and the monks. These are the three things that make up the Buddhism. So there's their Trinity. But the Western Christian Trinity, of course, we all know that it's the Heavenly Father, His Son, and the Holy Spirit, which is in a way kind of similar to the Taoism way, because the Holy Father can be the how do we call it? The Jin, and since the Jesus is the material part, and the Holy Spirit is the spiritual part. Okay. Anyway, I'm not expert in Christian religion, and this is what we found out, that in Christian religion, the Trinity idea, concept, is also a very important part of the religion. And now, if we come back to think about the word 是, it has 1, 2, and 3. These are all very fundamental concepts that are of essence to religion. But I think if we go step outside of religion, there are more things that has Trinity. Okay, Charles Sanders Peirce is an American philosopher, which some people claim to be the most significant philosopher in American history. But I guess not very many people really talk about Charles Peirce. Okay, he was a very smart man, but he went to Harvard, but he couldn't really find a good job. What he did all his life was a surveyor in the army. But I guess as a surveyor in the army, he has a lot of time, so he wrote a lot of philosophical works. And this is one of his important philosophical works, where he talked about firstness, secondness, thirdness. And you say, what's that? Okay, well, he does have an explanation in 1891. He says, firstness is the conception of being or existing independent of anything else. So that's something unique, okay? And the second is the conception of being relative to something else, okay? And third is the conception of mediation, whereby the first and the second are brought into relation. Okay, that's all gobbledygook to me. But anyway, my interpretation of the first, second, and thirdness is that if something is independently existing there, then that's firstness. But there are some things which exist but have to exist based on something else, then that's secondness. What we can think about is our arms and our fingers, our legs, or any of our body parts. They have to exist there predicated on that I'm here, okay? And that's my hand, that's my foot, and so on and so forth. And thought, okay? The thirdness is really organizations or society or whatever. We can say that family is a thirdness, or FA3 organization is a thirdness, in America is a thirdness. So a society, an organization, or some event that has to do with many people or many other independent things can be a thirdness. So this is a philosophical explanation of existence into a deeper thinking. Okay. So I've bored you enough, and but we need to carry on. And Charles Sanders not only created the first, second, thirdness, he also created a different trinity that's very important to us. This is a trinity of knowledge. And association, the relation between concepts and words. And this is language. What is language, really? The language is that if you have something in the world, and you think about or create a symbol to represent it, and you can keep that in your mind, then that becomes knowledge, becomes words, becomes your consciousness. Okay. So that is a very important trinity. Now, we say that we have an object, we have a symbol to represent it, and encapsulating the idea becomes word, right? And that's how the Chinese word for word is composed. You see, you have the zi in there, which is something, right? The existing something or somebody, and then you put something covering it that's encapsulating it. So that becomes a symbol. So this word itself encapsulates this idea of knowledge triangle, the knowledge trinity. Okay. And I found this description here that says, signs are the irreducible elements of communication and carrier of meaning. And it is also the carrier of our consciousness, our thoughts, our ideas. Very important. But this is not quite the end yet. We come back to this word, woman, 女, okay? And can you see the 女 is really shaped like a V? And that says that the chalets or the Holy Grail is really the womb or the woman. And I think the bloodline of Jesus may be true. Okay. And so to end it up, all up, Chinese language may not have answers to all the questions that you have, but they certainly have the right word for everything. Thank you. I can answer some limited questions, I guess, if you have some. Yes?
There is a slide, shows heaven, earth in person, and then you relate it to the character Zi.
Yeah.
How that related to those Trinity?
Well,
maybe a couple of slides back. Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Well, 天地人, I relate to Zi. Of course, it's a trinity, but I said earlier that Zi means the person between heaven and earth. So the three of them together is this word Zi. But it forms a trinity, an important trinity. Yes?
It's a shame to ask this question as Chinese, but
Go ahead. I can translate.
Why Tianfen has 12 and 10, and Dizhi has 12, right? 12, right?
Yeah.
So the combination should be 120 instead of 60.
No, line them up in orderly way, in the same order all the time. So every time you shift 2, and so you shift 2, and then after 5 times, after 6 times,
Between 10 and 12.
yeah.
60 can be divided by 10 or 12.
Yes.
30 cannot be
That's all
divided.
the common denominator. Okay. Thank you.
So, you sure you don't want me to go through? No? She says no.
Question.
Yes.
So what's the process of evolution of the language? Like if you want to add new words into the language, how is that? So my understanding is that there's a finite set of symbols, right, that describes the language. What's the process for evolving it, changing it as the times change?
Okay, as I say, there are 6 ways for Chinese to compose their words. And the first way was, of course, a pictogram. You create a picture. The second way is the ideogram, that you create a symbol that means something. So up and down, big and small, that's a symbol that means something. The third one is yi hui, which means you catches the meaning. So when you are combining different words together, like the words or words I showed you with the hearts, and you usually you look at the combination of it, and you get a related thought, and that gives you a new word. Okay. Then there are 3 other ways. One is phonetic, when you use some words uses a sound and then combine with something for its meaning. For example, the word song means pine tree, and song we already created a sound for it to call it song, and the word gong, which is part of it, combines with the wood, then it gives me the pine tree. Okay, gong is the sound of it. So using the sound of it is another way of creating a new word. And 假借转注, so you can borrow something and you can use some word differently to make it mean something else. So these are the 6 ways of Chinese evolving their words. Now I think we have something like more than 30,000 words right now in the Chinese dictionary, but not all of them are used anymore. Many of them were created in ancient times, but their meanings are sometimes are not that significant anymore. So we don't use that much anymore. If you learn about 3,000 words, it's probably sufficient for you. And the other thing is that we do combine words into phrases, like I have shown you earlier, that you can have 2 or 3 words together, like 飞机, flying machine, is airplane, okay, and so on and so forth. So these are the ways how the Chinese language has evolved.
So how would you make the word digital, which probably is a more modern term that didn't show up in China for quite a while, how would that be made into a modern?
Well, they use I think the codes. Okay, they use digital codes, which is usually, I think it's just four place codes, and if you have all the numbers and also all the characters combined together, that gives you what 36 different symbols, right? And you can have other symbols added to it. 26 alphabets and 10 numbers. You have 36, and you use 4 of them, then you have a lot of different combinations. So in computer, you have these what we call Unicodes, and each word is represented by a Unicode. And the Chinese also use the same Unicode, just extending from whatever English and French and so on are using, and we extend it into the Chinese. So the underlying codes are the same, but how you access them, how you create them, that's a good question. Over the years, people have tried very many different ways to create a way to access these words, and none of them is very easy. Probably the easiest will be the pinyin as we know it. If you know the pinyin of the word, you ping it out in the computer, and then the computer suggests a list of words for you, and you can pick out the right ones for you. But of course, the latest technology is that we have the smartphones now. And on the smartphone, we can directly write on it. And you write a symbol, and the phone will interpret and give you the right word. And that's really a remarkable advance that in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's very difficult for Chinese to access the computer because it's so difficult to input or output. But nowadays, it became the easiest. We don't even need to try, just use your finger and write on it.
I might want to add, it's so graphical. How do you decide the letter A? Digitize letter B. It's so graphical.
Yeah.
In computer, he said earlier, the yin and yang is a circle is on and off. So it's so binary. So every word has about so many digits. And the combination of them create all these words or letters alphabet. A, B, C, D, F, G. Each one has their own code. To me, that's real identity code.